Hello everyone, my name is Seth, and today I'm going to give you my review of The Empty Man. The Empty Man is a horror thriller. It kind of has like this urban legend kind of horror vibe, kind of similar to something like Candyman. It came out in 2020, and I had never heard of it until my friend Sky recommended it. So I had it on my watch list for a while now, and I was just thinking, now with the Halloween season coming up, this is a perfect opportunity to finally give it a watch. But before we go any farther, go ahead and like this video, hit subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a video. We are on the road to 300 subscribers, so go ahead and share this video with your friends, with your family. If you're new here, please subscribe. It will absolutely make my day. The story here follows James, who is a former police officer, as he is investigating the disappearance of a friend's daughter after seeing an ominous message that she left that said, "The empty man made me do it." And so if you're like me and you've never heard of it or you've never seen it, it is on Hulu. Go watch this film after you finish this review. I'm absolutely going to be recommending this film going forward to anybody who wants kind of a horror movie suggestion. It's not a perfect film by any means, but this was very, very enjoyable. It had just such an incredible tone and vibe to it. It was so creepy all the way through. So if you're looking for a good, well-made horror film, I think this is a good one for you to watch. And like I mentioned, it kind of reminds me, at least the story, kind of the mechanism of how this all kind of works, kind of reminds me of something like Candyman. But the first thing I want to mention is that this film basically opens with a short film, and it is absolutely incredible. I was instantly sucked into the story, into these characters, and I was insanely curious about what was going on. I was absolutely locked into this film right from the beginning. This honestly is one of the best openings to a film I think I've seen. I mean, you take this first 20 minutes and it's probably one of the best horror short films I have ever seen. It's a mixture of the acting and like the location that they have and just kind of the whole creepy vibe that they have going on. You know, they stumble upon something, things get weird. Like it's just so well done. I have a hard time believing that somebody would watch the first 20 minutes and be like, no, this isn't very good. But even in this first 20 minutes, it kind of gives you a little bit of a preview of some of the filmmaking techniques that they're going to use throughout this film. But everything in that opening is just kind of condensed into like this short film, and it is just so good. Like, I cannot stress that enough. It was really shocking to me how good of an opening this was. If there's some times where I don't feel like watching the whole film, I'm definitely going to be throwing on the first 20 minutes again. So don't take this next statement in like the wrong way, because overall I still really like the film, but the rest of the film just can't quite live up to that first 20 minutes. And I mean, that's kind of to be expected, because honestly, I would say the first 20 minutes is probably like a 10 out of 10. I really don't know what more they could do to make that better. So even though the rest of the film isn't a 10 out of 10, I still highly enjoyed it. But it's easy to do kind of some really neat filmmaking things in like a 20-minute short film. It's another thing to carry that over for the rest of the film, and they do that here. The thing really that stood out to me the most watching this whole film is just the actual technical filmmaking of it all. They very effectively used lighting all throughout this film. It sets the mood, and it keeps you on edge. It keeps you kind of guessing like what's in the shadows, and they even kind of play tricks on you a little bit where they linger on just like a dark hallway or dark room or something like that. And I don't know if they actually put something in there, but like your brain kind of makes you think that maybe there is something back there in the darkness. The color palette they use all throughout this film really helps set the tone as well. And the cinematography, all throughout this film. It was fantastic. I love the use of the camera movements they had throughout the film. I love the use of the zooms they used. Some of it kind of gave me a little bit of Sam Raimi vibes with some of the push-ins that they used. But all of that camera work, all of the cinematography really draws you into this film. It helps you immediately get into the story and kind of really feel connected to the characters. They do a great job of making you feel the character's paranoia. And some of the shots are so incredibly creative. There's this one shot that I absolutely love. I actually had seen this shot. Scott showed it to me before I watched the film. So it's not a spoiler. So if you want to look it up, you can, just to kind of get an idea of what this film's like in terms of the cinematography. But you are focused on a map, and the camera slowly starts to turn and push in. But then as you get closer and closer, it transitions to the actual like road that the map is focused on, and it's just an absolute beautiful transition, and it's so creative. I think the cinematography here and just the creativity in the filmmaking really helps elevate this film from being just kind of a, you know, another urban legend style like horror film. But throughout the whole time of watching this, they do such a great job of really making you feel unsettled. I think that's the best way to really describe this film. Like, it's all just unsettling. They do a fantastic job of building tension all the way through this film. You see some of the things that happens to different characters, and it really makes you feel like there's this ticking clock for our main character, and you feel the effects of that. And one thing I want from my horror movies is for it to just feel creepy, for it to give me chills. And it did that here. There were a lot of moments throughout this film where I just got chills. It just felt very unsettling. And that's exactly what you want. I can't even count the times where my eyes were just glued to the screen and I was just on the edge of my seat, just waiting to see what would happen next. And I think the pacing for this film, for the most part, is really well done. I say for the most part because I think there's a couple of moments here and there in the film where it starts to drag just a little bit, but those are just brief moments. And then once I started to kind of feel it start to drag, it picked it back up again. So those moments never lasted long, but I would say maybe there's like 5 minutes that they could have cut out of the film. But honestly, those moments, it just didn't really detract much from the film. And I mentioned it a couple times before, but this is kind of in the same vein of something like a Candyman, that style of horror, that kind of style of story. So we get a couple of those cliches kind of here and there throughout this film. You know, you had a classic research montage looking at different online articles. You got a little bit of like detective work, but that fits because our main character is a former police officer. So all of that just felt in character for him. And so none of what you might would consider as the cliches really stood out as cliches to me. It's enough to where looking back on it, yeah, I can recognize it, but in the moment, never took me out of the film at all. And I want to give big props to the score, because the score is another thing that just helps add to kind of the unsettling atmosphere. The score isn't distracting or anything at all. It just really enhances what you're seeing on screen. I think honestly, the biggest issue that I have with the film, like the biggest one singular issue, is probably the ending. The ending still works for me, but I will say it almost didn't. I don't hate the ending, but it kind of got to a point where, you know, like the last 15 minutes, I felt like it almost fell off the rails. We had a very deliberate and well-paced story, and then kind of that last little bit, the last 10, 15 minutes, it almost went like a million miles a minute. I think one of the things that kind of makes it seem like it might fall off the rails a little bit, and if it falls off the rails for you, I can't blame you, is that the film asks you to take in a lot of information. And when I say a lot, I mean like a ton of information in a very short amount of time. You really don't have time to kind of process everything, which it makes sense because that's kind of how it is for our characters. Our main character gets a lot of information really quick. Our main character is kind of feeling the same way that the audience is, or I guess kind of vice versa. We're feeling the same way the main character is, because he gets a ton of information and he basically has no time at all to process any of it. So I think that's definitely what they were going for. But if it doesn't work for you, I totally get it. And like I said, it almost didn't work for me. It took a little bit more of contemplating and thinking on it for me to be like, okay, I accept this ending. One quick thing about the writing is that the characters really had a lack of depth to them, although that lack of depth was intentional. And when you watch the film, you'll know what I mean. I'm not going to spoil anything, so you can go and watch it just completely fresh. But that was intentional. I don't necessarily know how I feel about it, because technically a lack of depth in characters is a mistake in terms of screenwriting. But with it being intentional, I don't know. I think that still is kind of a little bit of a negative for me, even though it was intentional. I will say that will make it interesting to go back knowing this information on a rewatch. I think the performances all throughout the cast were really good. Nobody was like a super big standout, but everybody was just really solid. And they did a good job of just connecting with the audience and making everything we see believable. We spend most of our time in this film with James Badge Dale, who plays our main character. And he does a good job here. We feel for him and we root for him. We want him to succeed. Overall, I think the story, the idea that's presented here, and the filmmaking is really what makes this film special. It was so unsettling and creepy and intriguing. Like, I had to know what happened next. I was absolutely locked in the whole way. There's a lack of depth to the characters, although that was on purpose. The ending almost didn't work for me. I feel like it did kind of mess with the pacing some, and I completely understand if you're not satisfied by the ending, because honestly, even though I accept it, I don't necessarily know how satisfied I am by the ending. But everything else in this film is honestly just really, really good, especially that first 20 minutes. That first 20 minutes, that opening, that basically kind of short film is just about perfect, honestly. I'm so glad I finally got around to watching this, and this will definitely be a good film to toss into my rotation of films around the Halloween season. I'm going to give The Empty Man a 4 out of 5. But that's it. That's my review of The Empty Man. Have you seen this film? Let me know what you thought in the comment section down below. I would absolutely love to have a conversation with you about it. And be on the lookout for the next few weeks. I'm going to be doing some more kind of horror, thriller kind of films, since it is kind of that Halloween season at this point. So if you have any suggestions on what you would like to see me review, leave those comments in the comment section down below as well. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like this video, hit subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a video. You can follow me on social media pretty much anywhere at CinemaSeth, and I'll see you next time.